and welcome to The Executive Appeal, a show that convenes the world's most powerful and successful leaders to share mentoring and career advancement advice to help you successfully transition into senior level executive positions. I'm your host, Alex Tremble, award-winning speaker, author, and leadership expert with over a decade of experience coaching and advising some of our nation's most senior level government leaders. So if you're ready to reach your goals, let's get started.
Hey, welcome, you ambitious, beautiful, awesome, magnificent, cool, sly, cool. Okay, you know where I'm going with this. How y'all doing today? This is Alex Tremble, the host of the Executive Appeal podcast. I am thrilled to be here with you again today. This is the podcast. This is the place, the space where we go beyond the ordinary, moving past the cliches of just work hard to actually uncovering the true secrets in order to be successful at the executive level and to reach those senior level executive positions. And as you know, I am not just your very handsome host for the podcast. I am also a keynote speaker and executive coach. I know, right? So if you're ever seeking an engaging motivational speaker for your next event, look no further. I've had the privilege of addressing audiences around the world, sharing insights that go beyond the surface and leaving long-lasting impact. Whether it's developing meaningful relationships with your team members, your mentors, clients, fellow executives, or it's focusing on providing your audience with the strategies required to achieve exceptional success in the face of all of life's complex challenges, I've got you covered. Don't miss out on your opportunity to elevate your team and stakeholders' potential. Visit alextremble.com, that's ALEXTREMBLE.com, to book me today to speak at your next event, and let's make your next event unforgettable together. And now, with no further ado, can I say today is a good day? See, today we have with us the always immaculate, cool, I'm going to say cool, one of the cool kids in the block, because I just know her background. She's one of the cool kids. Miss Kim Lonas. Kim is a distinguished professional in diversity, equity, and inclusion, currently serving as the Global Diversity and Inclusion Program Lead for DCC Technology, Exertis Group, where she has been instrumental at developing and implementing their DEI strategy, impacting over 5,000 employees, which is just crazy. Her role emphasizes embedding ownership and accountability within organizational units through local leadership and global diversities, Exertis Global Diversity Inclusion Council. Her professional journey has just been, we're going to talk about it, but it's been crazy, including tenure as Director of Human Resources at Exertis North America, being a founding partner and board member at the Regent Group, and serving as Regional Vice President at Robert Half, which is with this rich culture experience encompassing numerous countries, because she's always moving, such as France, Ireland, Sweden, the UK, and many more. Kim brings a global perspective to her work in DEI. With no further ado, how are you doing today, madam?
I'm doing great. That was quite the build up, so thank you.
Well, you're quite the leader.
I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wondered, as I was doing my homework on you and just looking at your background, you made me think of the first question I wanted to ask today. Now, I'm going to build this up again, but it'll be short. So when I started my career, I oversaw executive leadership development for the U.S. Department of the Interior, and I managed 3 government-wide leadership development programs. And I did that. I started that program, that job when I was 23 years old. Made no sense, but that's what kicked off my career in those senior level positions. While doing that, I then started GPS Leadership Solutions. At that point, I focused the organization on college students, high-performing college students, and then entry-level and mid-level employees. And partly because at that point, I had gotten advice from my counsel from the organization, my federal agency. I could not do executive leadership development inside the organization and do it outside. So I had to have a separate, right? So I did that for a while. Then I became a chief of staff within the National Park Service. Then I became a chief culture officer and communications officer. And then ultimately I began running my my leadership development business, GPS Leadership Solutions, full time. And then I went from me being the sole person doing coaching and training and so on and so forth to having a team. Then I started going for larger and larger contracts. That was my very brief, in a nutshell, how I got to where I am now. I love to ask you, how did you get to where you are now? What were those big pivot points? And then I have a question that will follow up after that.
Wow, that's a great question. So I know we had the conversation about hard work, and hard work is important. However, there is also strategically planning where you want your career to go. There's two components for me. I started a business with my husband, as you mentioned, the Region Group, and we did that 20 some years ago. And I thought that that was going to be the plan to stay there, grow that. And it has been incredibly successful. However, at some point after doing something for as long as I did, wanted a little bit of a change in my career. So I actually planned out, like, what do I want to do? And I decided that I had been on the agency side of recruiting for a long time, working for Robert Half, working for the Region Group, that I wanted to try things on the corporate side. And so that's what I did. I looked at positions for recruiters, and I just wanted something part-time because I still wanted to be involved in my thriving business. And then I actually stepped into a part-time role within the business that I currently work 8 years ago. And I took a chance. I wanted to learn more, and I thought it would benefit me within the business that I owned. And it did, but I really enjoyed it, actually loved it. And what was a part-time role became, a full-time role, became a head of department role, and then a head of DE&I role that it currently is. And it wasn't without planning, thinking, okay, I'm here today. What's my ultimate goal? And how am I going to develop myself? Who am I going to network with to get there? So that's kind of the path I went.
So I had an inkling that would be something like your answer. So here's the question now. Even though it was planned, did you foresee yourself, let's say 10, 15 years ago, being in the exact position you are right now?
No, no. I planned for growth, and I planned, like, by my nature, I'm kind of a take charge kind of person. So I knew that that was in my plan. And as I became more familiar with the business as I became more familiar with Exertis and the opportunities that were ahead, I started planning in that regard. Now, the DE&I position wasn't even in my thoughts. I was doing DE&I within our business at the time, and they didn't have a global DE&I role. So it was the first time that the business had created this role because it was important to us as an organization. And as soon as it became a role and we put it out to the business, I actually was encouraging other people to consider it. And then my boss at the time was like, well, why aren't you considering it? And I was like, well, I really enjoy working for who I was working for. I enjoyed the role I was in at that time. And it had not been an incredibly long period that I was in that role as director of HR for North America. And I wanted to see what was going to happen with the transition we were going through. But he actually advocated for me to take a deeper look at it. And then it just, I started considering it and started interviewing for it and thought, yeah, this is going to be a great fit for me.
So for all of you who don't know where I'm going with this, I want to underscore that So here's what I find. I find many leaders find themselves stunted, um, in paralysis. They feel like they want to get to the next level. They feel like they want to move up in the organization, have more influence, but they're not sure where. So they don't do anything because they're trying to figure out where. And what I am a huge proponent of, and exactly what you said, Kim, was it was planned, it was intentional. Now, you didn't know specifically that position, but your growth was intentional. You knew you wanted to grow certain skills. You need to meet certain people. You need to have certain experiences that you likely probably made happen, like made connections or found ways to have certain experiences. Um, what why do you feel that there are leaders who want to get to that next level who find themselves in paralysis? Because from my perspective, one of it is just like not knowing the next step and trying to think, oh, I gotta wait until I know the next step in order to go to the next step. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think from my experience, and I learned this early on in my career. I was at Robert Half, and I had only been there for a short period of time, but there was transition happening, and I was talking with my boss at the time, and a position had opened up, and she had mentioned that she was interviewing different people for that opportunity. And I thought, okay, well, she hasn't asked me, but we have a good relationship. Hey, why haven't you asked me about that role? And her response was, I didn't know you had an interest in
Mm,
moving up. And at that time, I had just had my first daughter, and I was, learning how to balance home and work and whatnot. And I said, no, I absolutely have an interest in that. And she's like, absolutely, let's get you in the mix then. And I found that you can't assume that people know
preach.
you want to grow. You have to advocate for yourself. And if they don't see you in a leadership role, okay, I respect that. What do I need to do to get there? And educate yourself and learn whatever it is, instead of maybe taking it in a negative way, take it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
I 100% agree with that, and I that's something honestly I've struggled with a lot in my life is that I've always been that guy who just gets it done. And people have seen me over the years getting things done, the organization growing, success here, success there. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, like why didn't they ask me to speak there? Why didn't they ask me to come and help them with this? And finally I was talking to one of my mentors, and they're like, Did you tell me you're interested in working with them? And I was like, no, but they know that I'm doing this, right? Like, you should probably talk to them. And the same thing, went and talked to them. Oh, I didn't know you were just winning over here. I thought you were busy. We'd love to bring you in. So I love that you bring that point up, Kim, because I think there's not only can we not expect people to be mind readers, but also when you're winning, people think you're good. Like there's an assumption that hey, they're doing good. They're happy where they are.
Well, and that's the other piece too. It's interesting you mentioned that. Sometimes, if you're doing really well in your job, it can cause a disruption in the business. So somebody may not want you to move because they
Mm,
can't imagine anybody else doing the role that you're doing. But that's where you have to, and that's another. The person at Robert Half, when I was there, great advice. Another part of the conversation was, who do you have on deck that can step into your role if you're going to move
yeah.
into another role? And I said, oh, that's a great question. And then it's really about developing people under you to take on more, so that you have the opportunity when it comes to step out of your role. And it really is about empowering your colleagues to do more as well, because then it not only benefits them, it benefits you as you want to grow and develop within an organization.
Oh wow. Wow, I love, so I've always, obviously, I'm always a proponent of developing leaders around you. Because I think that is just the smart thing to do, especially some people like don't even go on vacation. Like, oh, if I go on vacation, I won't know everything will just fall and come to a halt. Like, that's kind of on you. Like, why don't you have things in a row, where people developed? But to the point you just made, like just being intentional about building that bench will allow some of those people who say, "Oh, I can't imagine this going on without you." They can say, "Oh, wow, like she's or she or he or they have people. Like, if we moved her up, like we'll be solid here. She's been intentional about this. Like that's a really cool idea and strategy."
Yeah, and it's I also think that helps in, growing your business because if people who report into you feel empowered to do more or learn more or take on some of the responsibilities that you do or learn about them, it does help the organization thrive, help those individuals thrive, and it's a win-win for everybody, really.
You know, so I had a rough night last night. My boy is 9 months. As of recording this episode, he's 9 months old. And last night was rough. He just woke up and he was not trying to sleep. I mean, he sleeps in the same room as us, and it was crazy. Like he was just yelling. Like he wasn't like crying, like "Oh, I'm hungry." Like, listen to me. Like that's what he was basically saying. And as I think about this little boy, I see him smile. I see him like learning and growing and standing and grabbing things. I'm It's hard at times because on one side I'm like, oh my God, like I love him like this. I love being here with me and me helping him. At the same time, there are things I know that I could do to help him grow faster, right? And I can say, well, if I let him grow faster, then he won't need me. Like holding the bottle for him. I the little guy holds the bottle for himself now, but man, I didn't want to stop feeding him the bottle because I'm like, then he doesn't need me. I feel like sometimes it becomes very easy for leaders to do the same thing, to forget that it's not about you. It's developing them not only for the organization's sake, but for their own sake. And you should be doing it in a way that, hopefully, here's reality is good people get opportunities. And so if you've developed your team to a certain level and they're killing it, there is a good chance they may leave. They may be promoted somewhere else or in the organization. And you shouldn't look at that as a bad thing.
No, not at all. And actually, I think as a leader, and if you want to be seen as a leader, you need to do that. I mean, it's the right thing to do. um, so I guess I can't imagine not doing that and not
Mm.
enabling others to succeed. And I think a sign of a good leader, and as people on the call, are looking to develop their leadership skills. I think one thing is not just it being about you or about me. It's about everybody, and it's about your team members and propping them up and championing anything that they're doing, giving them an opportunity to share a seat at the table, because somebody helped us along the
Yeah.
way. And hopefully, and when you look at that, it's you have to give back, and I think giving back in leadership is developing and sharing and really leading with emotional intelligence to understand what your team needs.
You, you know, there's a couple ideas I want to put on the table. I know I have so much time, but well, the first idea is I thought about this. I'm going to put it on the table because I think it's a cool concept. And then if you have a reaction to it, feel free to have a reaction. If you don't, then say Alex will pass. Um, I was listening to this video the other day, and it kind of got me thinking. Um, people people want to be happy. I think generally speaking, people want to be happy. Um, the problem they have in being happy is that I think being happy is relatively easy, but we compare ourselves to other people, and the comparison makes us unhappy because instead of saying, yeah, we're happy with our life, it becomes, well, why don't we have that? Why don't we have this? Why am I not doing this? And so on and so forth. So my life must not be that great. Because it makes that big hit at social media. Um, and then not only do we compare ourselves to other people, but we also have the tendency to assume their lives are better than ours, right? We don't know what's going on in their life. We don't know what challenges, things they're going through, health, financial, family, whatever it may be. But we look at their lives and say, wow, their lives must be so wonderful. My life is not that wonderful. Why am I not doing anything? Am I not smart? Am I not good enough? And either that will push us sometimes to say, you know what, I'm just going to throw in the towel. I'm just going to resign to where I am because I'm obviously not smart enough. I'm not good enough. Or it could motivate you, one causing some maybe unhealthy stress. And I think both of those instances are really unhealthy stress. But again, I thought of the concept of we too often compare ourselves to other people, and then not only do we compare ourselves to them, but we assume their life is better than what they are. Um, that is not necessarily a question, but do you have any reactions or thoughts in regards to that?
Yeah, I think it's natural to compare ourselves to others, but if it undermines our happiness and personal growth, that's not so great. I think for executive leadership development, it's important to focus, yes, developing your team, but also to focus in on your path and your achievements versus my colleague and their path and their achievements. I think personal growth, self-awareness is important. And you're right, you don't know what any other person's true lived experience is and how it's impacting them in their work. All you can do is say, this is this is me, this is where I want to go, and I want to be happy. I can't change what somebody else is doing. I can only encourage myself, and my personal growth within my team, so that, again, everybody's journey is unique and so are their contributions. So I say just stay positive and try and create productive work versus competing with somebody else on your team. Hopefully that aligns with what you're thinking.
I I couldn't agree more, and I'm really glad you went in that direction because it brings up the idea of what's called gap and gain. Um, it, the gap is us as leaders saying, "I am here, but I should have been there, or I could have been there, or if I was smarter, I would have been there. If I would have done that wrong, I would have been there." Though that's that gap. I think that's a very stressful place to be because also you're making, it's like it's a guess. You don't know where you would have been if something else would have changed in your life. You would have done things differently, so on and so forth. But what you do know and more factual is the gain. You do know where you were, and now you know where you are now. You can objectively say, I was here, I knew this type of stuff, I learned this. I was here, I promoted, I was here, grew my family, whatever it may be. That is a much more objective measure of our life. And we can then hopefully then appreciate those wins that we have. Even as we are ambitious and want to continue to grow, we should always be remembering those wins because I think that also motivates us to move further, especially when you're in these leadership positions where things can be very often difficult. Like you need to have those wins.
Absolutely. And I think that mindset can lead to a more resilient you, a more resilient and optimistic team. Again, I think it's about your personal growth and continuous improvement in that.
So you have, I hope it's okay if I can ask this question. I believe you
Sure.
know. So I have a client, a coaching client. He's an executive leader and SVP at a large organization, Fortune 500. And one of the things we talked about was he was like, man, I'm not sure if I can get that next level because, as I look around the table of the other executive leaders around me, every time something comes up, like they throw an answer out, they throw an answer out really fast. And he's like, but that's not my style. It's not what I'm good at. I need time to think about stuff. I need time to process stuff. And so he's like, ultimately, do you think that I can progress in my career if I don't have that type of throwing things out like willy nilly? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Kim.
I'm, I'm laughing. That is me. I am somebody who sometimes if I need a quick response, I'll give it, but then I do tend to want to think things through, digest what's been asked of me, because in that quick response, um, I may not have asked all the questions. And so
Mhm.
I do tend to want to pause, um, make sure I fully understand, the details and nuances of what's being asked of me or what the situation is. And then, think through whatever my decision might be, and the paths it could go. Because if I make a decision, what are the consequences of that decision? And I think I do tend to take my time in processing, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So I think, how do you handle that in leadership? Well, if you're put on the spot for something, a question or a decision, it's okay to say, I'd like to pause for a minute and think that through. And can I come back to
Mhm.
you tomorrow morning? Can I come back to you later in the day? If somebody needs a decision today and you make that decision, um, that's fine. But if somewhere along the line you think it through in a different direction, come back to them and say, you know what,
Mhm.
I've had more time to process, and this is, after further consideration, have we thought about Plan B, or
Yeah.
this path, whatever the response might be.
I think that's really great advice, especially like you said, having the confidence to come back after you've thought through it and say, because some people might say, well, it's too late now, right? But I think, like you said, I think having that confidence to be like, hey, look, I had some time to think about this. Here's some other things to consider. I think it's a great idea. And another thing I shared with him was like, I believe in educating people as much as possible, um, early as possible. So, like, if that's how you process, make sure everyone around you knows that's how you process.
Absolutely, absolutely, because and I think you and I had spoken. I said, I do. If my camera goes silent, it's not because I'm on mute. It's because I'm thinking it through. And I think, it's okay to say, like, this is how I work, because you can't expect others to understand it without
Mhm.
you sharing. I mean, people aren't mind readers, so you absolutely have to share, um, how you're feeling, how you lead, what your expectations are. And by doing that, there's clarity and understanding.
So, I know we haven't really. I mean, you are the global SME, the global SME. I hate that word. I hate SME. When I always learned SME. Then after I hear people saying SME, you're the global subject matter expert on diversity, so you know everything. Like, I know we haven't delved into that today, but I would like to ask you a question in regards to that. Um, where do you think companies, organizations are missing a step when it comes to developing diverse talent pipelines for senior executive level positions?
Yeah. First, I don't know everything. I think they call it a journey for a reason, because you are constantly learning. I learn from people every day, things I didn't know tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I do think that as businesses look to diversify their workforce, it's great to say, well, I'm going to hire people from underrepresented groups, and this is a good thing for our business. And there are definite benefits to having diversity within an organization. And there's so many studies out there. Ethnically diverse companies are 35% more likely to outperform their the industry medians. There's, inclusive companies are, more than 1.5 times more likely, to be innovative in their leadership. Um, and that's great. But if you just hire people to hire them,
Mhm.
you're not setting your business up for success. So within our organization, one of the first first steps I took, my boss at the time said, you know, it's a new role. What direction do you want to go? And the first thing I said is we need to give our leaders in the business the tools to successfully create an inclusive environment. It's one thing to say, create inclusion, be inclusive. We've hired people, but if there aren't tools to create that inclusive environment, you're going to hire people and then you're going to have constant turnover because they're not, those underrepresented groups have different needs. And so you need to understand them, and to be an inclusive leader, you need to ask questions, and you need to know what questions to ask. You need to know how to run different meetings. And that's what we did as an organization. We started at the top, we educated, we provided tools, and now it's part of our ongoing training and development for our leaders, so that we can take those individuals who come into the business from underrepresented groups, hear what they need, give them what they need, develop, and hopefully see them, rise within the organization because they stay with us. That's really the plan.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I want to underscore when you say it's not, I don't like the idea of diversity for diversity's sake. Like you said, you could throw a bunch of people in the room, but if no one has a voice, right? If no one stays, no one feels welcome, they're not going to share anything, they're not going to get any benefits of it, right? There needs to be intentionality around it. And especially that I word, that inclusivity and the belongingness. There's a cool study happened at YouTube, and they had basically this new function back years ago. Now everyone knows how to do it, like how to upload videos to your YouTube channel. And they found it's like 10% of everyone who uploaded the video did it wrong. Their video was like upside down, and they're like, why is this the case? And they start diving into it, and they figured out, oh, everyone who their video's upside down is left-handed. And our instructions were all written for people who are right-handed. And they looked at the population and they go, oh, 10% of the population is left-handed. And this is why it's so important to have different voices and perspectives at the table, because I don't think it would be fair to expect me or you or anyone to know everything about every group, versus just asking them. I always tell people, like, I have chronic back pain, and so most people don't know it because, oh, it's a big dude. He's strong, yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to events or we were planning meetings for organizations, and like, oh, we'll just have standing room only. Like, what about people who can't stand? Well, what about people who are on wheelchairs? Like, you have to think about those things, and not everyone does that. That's why I think having those really inclusive, diverse teams can be very powerful.
Absolutely. There is a lot of power in that. And you're right, about, knowing what questions to ask. Great, you want standing room only, but how do you handle people with disabilities who want to participate? And I think that's where you find individuals within your organization that can, who maybe have a passion for different aspects of diversity. And that's what we've done. We've launched employee resource groups or affinity groups within our business. We have people who are passionate about it, because DE&I is not just me and what I want for the organization. It's what do you want for the organization. And so with our employee resource groups, we have people who are now subject matter experts. So if I need to understand Pride Month is coming in June, I'm going to go to our LGBT ERG leads and say, okay, Pride Month is coming. What would you all like to see as a community within our business, as far as our celebrations? Or, how do we raise awareness around, different topics relative to your community, and let them lead. Again, it's, for me, it's about others taking ownership of our initiatives within the business. And I think we're seeing great things happening within Exertis, and people really having their voice. And I look, I've been in this role now for 2 years, and recently had a discussion where somebody was interviewing, and there was a person who researched our company and saw that we had an ERG that aligned with something that they were passionate about, and it makes a difference. And
Yeah.
I think from a leadership role, as your audience is looking to lead, again, it's not just your perspective, but it's others. And how do you touch many different aspects of individuals when they are considering your organization? So so I think it's, again, having a lot of subject matter experts within the business to help you.
I'm gonna make one last comment and then we'll start wrapping up. But I think one last comment. So 2 points. One, I want to I'm gonna leave this one to the second one actually, because I think you may want to have something to say about that. So first, I'm gonna say one of the things we at GPS Leadership Solutions are always encouraging our clients to look at when they're trying to develop diverse pipelines is look at the data. And one of the things the data tells us is that 80% of jobs opportunities are filled via relationships. And 70% of opportunities are actually being shared publicly. So if we know this, if we know that relationships are what's critical when moving into these positions, then whatever programs you have, it has to have a component of helping those participants build intentional connections with influencers, people who are ultimately going to have this say, who are going to advocate on behalf of, and so on and so forth, so that the relationship piece is always critical. Actually, I talk about it in my book, Relationships That Work. The last piece I want to throw with you too is that I've heard you now multiple times during this interview say, one, I was joking, we're like, oh, you're smart, you know everything. You're like, no, I don't know everything. And then you talked about how, going to the LGBTQ employee resource group for this month, for their month, say, what are they like? Like, you consistently talked about you not having to be the expert and bringing the right people to the table. And so I want to underscore that, and you can feel free to say something about that. And then the other piece of that is, as you become more and more senior, I think it is not about doing more, but about doing less. Where do you focus your time? Where do you focus your energy? And where do you delegate roles, responsibilities, decisions to people who could and should be making those roles, the responsibilities? Not only that you're developing them, but also you can now focus your time on where you can have the biggest impact in your role. Those are just 2 things I want to sit on the table. Feel free to respond to either, and then we'll start wrapping up.
Okay. So the first part about relationships and networks, I think, or relationships within the business, I think it should be foundational to your personal and professional growth, because those relationships and networks can provide support, insight, opportunities, and resources that are critical for them and critical for your career advancement and effective leadership. Building strong relationships, it's not just about what you need, it's about actively listening, mutual respect, constant communication, and a willingness to say, I don't know everything, but let me try and help you, and you try to help me, and hopefully we have this reciprocal relationship moving forward that everybody wins from. And then the other part about delegating, was that the question? I think as you rise in your seniority within an organization, delegation becomes essential. I guess it's really choosing the right tasks, aligning with the right people, and making a match that's whatever that task may be, that it's suitable for delegation. Being clear in your expectations, and then empowering and trusting whoever you give that task to own it and come through for you. Because you can't, in my opinion, you can't constantly be on somebody. Did you do it? Did you do it? And I do that with my kids. I'm not going to lie, and they're older. They're not babies anymore. But I just think you need to empower people that you choose to own a task, to do it and come back to you. You know, just trust, I think, is important.
I thank you for saying what you did. You just reminded me. I forgot to ask a question I have asked every guest for the last like umpteen episodes. Um, so, what advice? What are your thoughts on how to raise good human beings? This question comes from many executive leaders who I work with. Our first time in their family, they're the first one to rise to that level, rise to have that income, the resource, the access, and sometimes they have challenges on how they should raise good human beings. So they give them too much? Are they giving them not enough? Are they being too hard on them? Are they making them do too much? What are your thoughts on raising a good human being?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I'm really fortunate that I'm I have two daughters. They're young adults now, 21 and almost 25, and I like my kids. I mean, and so I think at the end of the day, that's a win for me. Like I feel like they are really genuinely good people, and we have really interesting conversations about because of the work that I do, and the generation that they are part of. We have really interesting conversations about allyship at the kitchen table, and things that they experience. So I think I don't have all the answers on great parenting, but I think you learn as you go, and do the right thing is always important. Giving them responsibility. My parenting style was keeping them busy when they were young, active, like sports, dance, gymnastics, soccer. It was just constantly keeping them engaged, and I outlining like who do I want them to be as individuals. And we used to have a list. Oh gosh, I haven't thought about this for years. We used to have a list on our refrigerator as a constant reminder of what we wanted to instill into our kids, because you can get busy in your day to day and your
Yeah,
job and your life, and you can overlook what you want to instill on
yeah,
them.
yeah,
So it was like a constant reminder. Okay, if I want my child to learn empathy, I need to teach empathy and be empathetic. If I want them to take a leadership role or be kind, I need to be kind, because they look at you and they repeat everything that you do. And now that my children are older, I see them and I think, yeah, sometimes they're mini me, sometimes they're mini George, my husband. So yeah, I think, but I like my kids. I think we did. So that's my advice, because I think they're good humans.
awesome. That is some great advice. Again, I benefit from all these because I got a 9 month old, so I'm gonna be utilizing all this wonderful advice. Miss Kim, thank you so much for being here with us today. I want to open the floor. Is there anything you have to share with our audience as we wrap up?
Sure. I think, first I want to say thank you for letting me join the call today. I think it was a really good conversation. I think for anybody who may be listening, becoming a leader involves continuous learning, self improvement, um, effective communication. Um, the ability to inspire and empower others. It doesn't just sit with you. Your success is going to come from the success of people around you and how you influence them. And I'm always an advocate for inclusivity, and I think good leaders foster that within the organization. And I also want to say that if anybody on who has questions about their leadership journey, or would like to network with me, I am more than happy to do it. So please reach out. I'm always willing to meet new people.
Awesome sauce. Okay, I'll be reaching out again. So, Kim, you are wonderful. You are absolutely beautiful individual. Thank you so much. Everyone, you know where I'm going with this. If you found one inkling speck of advice that you thought was hit your heart and really set on you, don't keep it to yourself. Don't just look back, reach back, bring someone else to the table and share this content with them. Click the like, click subscribe. And I'd like to hear from you. What was your biggest aha, your biggest takeaway from Kim's interview today? Because I know there were just so many. So I'd love to hear from you. What are yours? As always, I encourage everyone, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and in speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.